Your exam, your semester exam is going to be everything from day one. So when you started in here in October to now, everything's free game. This is like thinking about the basics of, every person here ran into something different. Whether you brought in something to work on, whether you worked on something of somebody else's, you encountered different experiences through this class. That being said, the nuts and bolts of it, see what I did there? Get it? Nuts and bolts? Okay. The nuts and bolts of what I'm going to test you on in that exam is the basic parts, the basic tools that we use, some safety stuff, whatever. So, starting with this, part number 1. What is it? Cameron? Piston rings. Perfect. That's it. Like going step by step by step by step. 2. 2 is pointing to what? Edge. You betcha. 2 is a piston. Guys, don't copy this stuff down. Like, you putting down number 1 is a piston ring, number 2 is a piston. I'd rather have you look at this board and say, yep, that's pointing to the piston. Instead of immediately focusing on like, oh, here, I gotta write this down. Okay? If you don't know it by now, you're probably not gonna study it anyway. You're probably not gonna know it Wednesday. Number 3 would be what? Austin?
Connecting rod.
Connecting rod, good. 4. 4's a tricky one, because this is one's a little different. What do you think 4 is? Part of the oil pump system. Okay, so that is actually the oil pump system. 4 I put on there as extra credit. Okay, so I'll tell you that on Wednesday, 4 is extra credit. 5 is a what? Right here. That main shaft would be what? Wyatt? Crankshaft, thank you. 6 would be what? That other shaft, that slightly smaller one. Good shot, Gavin.
Camshaft.
Camshaft is correct. Crankshaft, camshaft. Number 7. 7 points to that housing around the outside if you can't see it from where you're at. Somebody that I haven't heard from yet. Dylan? Okay, that could be the crankcase, that could be the cylinder block, oil reservoir, anything along those lines I would accept. Number 8 is pointing to that thing up above it. What's number 8, Samuel?
Cam gear.
Cam gear is correct. That's turning that cam shaft. Number 9. 9's pointing to the part off to the right. What do you got, Logan? Flywheel is correct. Now we're gonna kind of deviate. What's the significance of a flywheel? We'll come back to that. Number 10. Number 10 is called a tappet. Those lift your valves, okay? Those are those short little stubby rods that lifted your valves. Those are tappets. 11 is either an exhaust port or an intake port, depending where it's located. I don't get into which one's which, as long as you know that it's an exhaust or intake port. Number 12 is pointing to this part right here. This thing. Which would be what? Jackson? Say it loud enough that camera can valve. That is a valve, thank you. Number 13 is pointing to what? This whole top thing up here, Mason.
You say it's the whole top thing?
Yeah.
The head? I don't know. Yeah.
Cylinder head. Yep, correct. And then the last one, 14 is pointing to what? Austin, what do you got? Spark plug, correct. That's it. That's a large majority of your test. Now we're going to go kind of full circle backwards. What's a spark plug do? In a nutshell, just tell me, what does a spark plug do, Elijah? The fuel and what is with the fuel? Close. Austin? Not compressed air. Say it. Air. An air fuel mixture. How does that air fuel mixture get mixed? Samuel?
Carburetor.
Carburetor mixes it. Okay, carburetor draws it in, mixes it with air, pushes it to where? Cameron? Okay, the intake port, which takes it into the combustion chamber, right? Pulls it into the combustion chamber. So then the spark plug ignites it. Brings me back to Logan said earlier that this is the flywheel. What's significant about a flywheel? What does a spinning flywheel do? Wyatt. You betcha. The magnetic field that's created creates an electrical charge, which goes to the spark plug, creating a spark. Makes the fuel air mixture go boom. Okay? That expansion and burning of gases pushes this piston down, thus creating linear motion. The connecting rod attached to this crankshaft, which is offset, that linear motion gets changed to rotary motion. That rotary motion and that turning also helps this flywheel to turn, which comes full circle to if I'm starting this thing manually, I pull a recoil rope, okay? I go, okay, give her a big read. What did I do? I spun it around. That hopefully pulled air and fuel in through my carburetor into my combustion chamber. When that happened, my flywheel was going around. When my flywheel went around, it sent the electrical charge, and it began the burning combustion process, right? Questions? Oh, what didn't I hit on? Valves. The main purpose of valves, they open and close to seal off that combustion chamber, but the intake valve opens up and lets air and fuel in. Then when it's burnt and it's going to push back up and exhaust all those gases out, that valve, the exhaust valve, opens up and allows it to go out through your exhaust port. In a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, that's what's going on with every internal combustion motor. Like whether it's this big or whether it's as big as this room, that in a nutshell is what's going on. This is called a 4-cycle engine. Predominantly on this exam, we are talking 4-cycle engines. We are not talking 2-cycle engines. Don't tell me about 2-cycle engines because predominantly we are just talking about 4-cycle. Is that clear, everybody?
Yes.
When you get the exam, it's going to be about 4-cycle engines. What does that mean, 4 cycles? What?
There's 4 steps.
4 steps. What are those 4 steps? We call them strokes. Four-stroke engine, 4-cycle engine. What's the first one? Pull that recoil rope. What's that first one that it's got to do for everything to take place? What's the first stroke? Go ahead, Cameron. intake. Again, you got a motor here. In a nutshell, that's kind of your motor, okay? This would be your direction of rotation. You got a piston in here. That piston on the intake stroke is going down, right? What's the next stroke? The second one. Dylan? Compression. On compression, it's going back up. Third stroke. Wyatt, what do we got? Combustion, or what do we also call it? Somebody just say it.
Ignition.
Power. That's your power stroke. Where the explosion's actually taking place. What's happening then? It's going back down. That's your power stroke. Then, our fourth and final one is what? Edge exhaust stroke. And then it's going back up and pushing all those gases that are burned back out. Follow me? That's our 4 strokes. Okay? That keeps happening over and over and over and over, multiple times per second. Am I clear? Oh. Questions on any of this? So, know your 4 strokes for Wednesday. Know your different parts of an internal combustion engine. What is it called to have a stroke? What is it? Not have a stroke. That's all I'm doing. That's healthcare stuff, not small engines and stuff. What is a stroke as it relates to small engines? What's a stroke? Right there's 4 of them up there. What happened at every single one? What can you say in a nutshell? Go ahead, Sam.
One complete cycle.
It takes 4 to make a complete cycle. So what is a stroke then?
Slumming. I don't know. For my friend.
What?
That's for my friend.
Go ahead, friend.
I'd just say like a movement of the piston.
Okay. And I totally agree with Mason saying a movement of a piston, but I'm going to take it one step further and I'm going to say changing of direction of the piston. Okay? So it's top dead center to bottom dead center. Back to top dead center. Back to bottom dead center. That's the nature of what we're doing. So it's that traveling from top to dead center to bottom. What's happening within a small engine while it's operating in your words? You're just going to explain what we just did. Give me those 4 strokes. You got the 4 strokes written up here. You explain what a stroke is. Now you're just going to explain what's happening. Now's where you can talk about an air-fuel mixture. Now's where you can talk about the spark. Now's where you can kind of mix in some of those things. What's the purpose of a carburetor? What is the purpose of a carburetor? Jackson? Mixes fuel and air. Gets it in the combustion chamber. You betcha. What's the purpose of spark plug? Wyatt?
Ignite your fuel and air mixture.
There you go, bud. How does a motor create spark? Logan? Sure. You explain that enough with the magnets. Magnetic pass each other, create that field. That's what creates the electrical current. Okay. Similar to a miniature generator, if you will. Okay. We talked a little bit about it earlier on, but How motor creates spark, we talked about. This one I'm not talking. Yeah, we're good to go. What else? Questions? Anything?